If the thought of trailering your horse makes you start to sweat, then you need to watch this video. Before I get started today, I just want to remind you guys that if you like this video, please hit the like button and leave a comment. It really helps the algorithm. And also, if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be showing you guys how I train my horses to get on the float in a really chill, lazy, low stress way. If you follow my channel, then you will know that I use clicker training to train my horses. The techniques that I'm going to be showing you today, you don't actually need to have a clicker trained horse to do it. You can do this with a horse that is taught pressure and release, as long as you have a good connection with that horse. So before I show you guys what it is that I do, I want to explain the pre-steps that I did before I got to doing this step. So a lot of horses that have been floated before or trailered, that's what we call it in Australia. We call it floating. In America, you call it trailering, if any of you guys were just suddenly really confused about that. So there are a lot of ways that you can teach your horse to get on the float.
Wow!
There are even more ways to just get a horse on the float. And this is not a video to show you how to get your horse on the float. This is a video to show you how to train your horse to relax on the float and make it a good experience for them. So before you can do this, you do need to have a few things under your belt that you and your horse can do. Firstly, you need to have a good relationship. Your horse needs to trust you and trust your judgment and your leadership. If you do want to start clicker training with your horse and you haven't done any clicker training before, I highly recommend getting my ebook because I give you a really good, simple rundown of the basic techniques that you need for positive reinforcement training. And also, I've done a few videos, so go check out my videos on target training and or conditioning the clicker before you start trying to clicker train your horse. But like I said at the start, you don't need to clicker train your horse to be able to do this method. You can use it without having a clicker trained horse. If you have a clicker trained horse though, it is going to be easier and you're probably going to find that it's going to be faster. So this is really, really important. A lot of horses have trauma around trailering, okay? It's a scary, scary experience. A lot of horses aren't prepared properly for their first float or trailer. For example, my horse Tyrick, his first experience with a float was when he got taken from his home, his one paddock that he lived in for 10 years, was put on a truck with his siblings and trucked off to the dog meat factory where he was put in a yard full of horses. A bit was shoved in his mouth, and then I bought him and he was floated in a rope halter and he arrived an absolute mess. He had rope burns all over his head. He had rub marks. He had no hair on both sides of his face and his tail for a couple of months after that because he had rubbed it raw, just absolutely freaking out the entire time. That's the extreme version, but a lot of horses have little T trauma, which is like small accumulating traumas. Like, for example, maybe they get on the float and then you drive quite a far distance and they're like, okay, that was really hard and a little bit stressful. And then the next time, maybe it's a bit bumpy and they're like, okay, and it's just adding and adding, adding. So that can actually accumulate into bigger trauma where a horse will refuse to get on the float. They're very stressed, stress pooping, falling out, shaking, rearing, strike, anything, all the problem behaviors.
Wow!
Is coming from a horse that is stressed and has trauma around the float. So if your horse is like that, then you're going to need to do some conditioning first. And by conditioning, I mean get the float, put it in an area that your horse is relaxed in, like their paddock or an area that you work in a lot. Feed your horse around the float. Tie your horse around the float and give them something really yummy in a hay net. Spend time reconditioning your horse's association with the float. So if you're working with a horse that is really does not like trailering and does not like floating and is quite stressed around it, then just be careful with how you are asking them with the food and making sure that you're properly reading your horse and looking for any signs of stress, such as these. Okay, that's enough talking. Let me show you guys how I set up the training area to do this exercise because environmental setup is so important. We have to set our horses up for success if we want them to have success, okay? Okay, so outside of the float, and my horse is very comfortable standing here, so you want to pick a location where your horse is super comfortable. If your horse is not comfortable staying next to the float, Do not try and get them on the float. Oh my God. One of the horses was just scratching his butt on the round bale and it was hilarious, but he stopped now, so I can't show you guys. I've chosen this really slow feeder hay net because I like using this for Tarek. Tarek loves this hay net. It does not make him frustrated. A lot of horses will get frustrated by this hole size because it is very small. So just pick a hay net that your horse is used to eating out of, preferably a slow hay net, and put hay that they like in there. For example, I have put really high quality grassy lucid in here. He's been eating this all day and he's barely even put a dent in it. So I love using a really slow feeder for high value hay like that. And he will stand here for ages and just eat that. He is very happy. I also have a bucket of water here. So he's got water and he's got food outside the float. And this is our rest area. This is our, okay, we're having a break because we're going to need to have breaks during this exercise. And it's somewhere that they can go and they can decompress and they can relax. Okay, now I'm inside the float. And inside the float, I have another hay net. And specifically for this purpose, I have chosen a hay net that is a bit easier to get the hay out of. So it's easier than the one outside. So the one outside he's got to work harder for, and I've done that on purpose. So this is easier. It's got the same hay in it, the same lucerne. I've put it in a spot that I know that he can get to and still remain relaxed. So it's super important that you put the hay net that is inside the float in a location that your horse can make it to without getting stressed. Because if your horse is stressed and they're stressed eating, then you're going to potentially create conflict. Put it in a location that your horse can get to without being too stressed. And I also have the same hay again, but in a form that I can give as treats. So if he does something that I think is really brave, like if he's trying really hard and I can see that and something was hard for him and he did it, I will mark that and I will give him a free handful of the lucerne, okay? And that really works as a really good bonus that he's like, oh, I did it. I couldn't get far enough to get the food out of the hay net, but I can get this far. And I'll say, great job. Here you go. Have a handful of lucerne. Have a handful of the hay that is at the end. Okay. So if you're not clicker training with your horse, I mean, you can still do this if your horse is pretty chill around food. But if your horse is not used to working with food and they get anxious, then I probably don't recommend doing this. But really, it's up to you. You can try it. And if it doesn't work and you think it's making your horse a bit stressed, then stop doing it. But I am a clicker trainer, so I highly recommend that you guys go and learn how to clicker train your horses by watching my other videos if you want to do this exercise because you're going to get the best benefit out of it. This is not the first time that I have done this technique with Tarek. Therefore, we are now up to the stage where our hay net can be all the way back there. But we started with the hay net here, okay? So a good indication that your horse is too stressed is if they're not taking food. If your horse is not taking food or is not really interested in eating, then you have gone too far. Take it back a bit, ask for less. So put the hay net that is inside the float closer to the entrance of the float. Okay, that is super important. So the last thing that I've done is that I've made sure that the float is as light as possible. So I've opened everything up as much as I can because that's just going to help your horse enter the float easier. If the float is really dark, then your horse is going to be scared to go in there, okay? Horses have trouble adjusting their eyesight between light and dark like that. It can make things seem a little weird and a little scary. Okay, so I've got Tarek here with me, and I'm just going to give him a little moment to just have some hay, relax, just get into a really relaxed, chill mindset, ready to start working. If your horse cannot stand tied up here next to the float eating, then that's where you start, okay? So this is the part that you want to pay attention to your horse's body language. So I'm going to give him a click. Handful of food so he understands what he can earn. And then you want to ask him to back up. Because backing up, learning to back up off a float is just as important as walking on the float. And a lot of horses don't like going on the float, because they don't know how to get off the float, or they've gotten off the float and it's been a little bit traumatic for them. So always work on getting off. Walking away also gives your horse the chance to kind of relax a little bit as well if they do have a lot of tension around the float use. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to show you guys how I shape it really quickly. Obviously, you probably won't move this fast, but we've been doing this for a while and he understands what the game is. So I've upped what I call my criteria. So now he has to walk a little bit further on. And he's allowed to look, that's totally fine. I don't want him looking for too long though, because I don't want his thoughts to get magnetized and think that walking out is an option, because walking out is not an option. And then you just kind of wait. You just wait. If you're doing this without clicker training, then obviously you would just do each of these steps and just wait. And you'll probably have to wait quite a long time. You want to wait till your horse shows signs of relaxing. So licking or chewing, they start investigating, sniffing things, that sort of thing. Those are the signs that you're looking for. So I'm just going to wait. I'm not even asking him to do anything. Again, he's allowed to look, but that's not an option. So I'm not going to let him think that that is an option. Good job. Here we go. Good job. So if you weren't using food, you wouldn't click. You would just immediately ask your horse to back up again and get off. Back. Back. Because that's the reward, is being able to get off the float. Good job. See, he just wants to get back on it. Come on, baby. We got to show the people how to do this. We got to show the people. So if you're not using clicker training, now you can let your horse have a bit of a relax and a bit of an eat out of this hay net as the reward. If you are using clicker training, then you can just repeat that process, and you just repeat and you slowly increase what you expect of your horse. So for example, your horse may be only comfortable walking up to the trailer. That's fine. That's where you start, okay? You don't want to be pushing your horse to a place of discomfort or stress. You want to work underneath that level. So figure out where that level is. Some horses can't even look at a float without getting to that level. So that's where you start. It might seem really daunting to have to start so far back, but trust me, it works so much quicker when you do that, okay? So just listen to what your horse is saying and work with them, not against them. Remember, this is a training session. We don't have to get on the float today. This is all about making the floating a good experience, okay? You can still do this even if you have to float your horse a week later and you might have to force them to get on. Doing this is still going to help them next time, because every time you do this, it adds money to the trust account for the float. So imagine that your float is like a big money box and the currency is the horse's trust, okay? So at the start of this exercise and the start of float training, your horse may see this as a negative currency. But the more you pay into this, then the more it's going to accumulate. And then if you have something that is negative, it's going to take away, but you're still going to have money in the bank, right? So that's what we're doing in this exercise. Give your horse as many breaks as they need. So now I'm going to up the criteria. I'm going to ask him for a little bit more. Great job. Okay. And if your horse wants to go back, they can. Good job. See, up the criteria again, ask for a little bit more. Good boy. Back up. Good job. Remember to teach your horse to go backwards. Back up. Back up. So he wants to turn around, but I want him to get confident. She's all right. Backing up. Back up. Back up. Good job. Back up. Good boy. Good, clever boy. Something else I like to do is if he wants to get off the float, then that's fine. And we're just going to do this outside the float. This is not a punishment. You're not chasing your horse around. It's just a different thing that we're doing. It just gives him another option. So that's just to help him release some tension. It's not a punishment. It shouldn't be adversive to him. It should help him relax. Sometimes when horses are tense, movement can help bring them back into that more relaxed state. Good boy. All right, we're going to go back on the float. Okay, it's very hard to get a good angle inside the float, but I'm going to do my best just so you guys can see what it looks like from this way, what his face looks like, what his body looks like, what his eyes are doing, what his ears are doing. So at this point, he has not reached the hay net, okay? When your horse reaches the hay net, you're going to want to let them stand there and eat the hay for a little while. So we're going to get to that point now, and I'll show you guys what I do. And if he wants to back off, he can. And I'm just going to show you guys like how I navigate that situation with him. Remember, if you're new to this, put the hay net closer to the door of the float. Make it easier for your horse. Make sure it's within your horse's threshold so that they can still stand there and eat and be relaxed where you've got the hay net, okay? All right, so I'm not clicking until he gets all feet up because that's the new criteria and he is aware of that. There we go, good job. I'm just gonna go underneath. So have a long lead rope, guys. Have a lead rope. Clever boy. Okay, that was a huge freebie. I don't want you to eat all that because you might choke. All right. See, that was not supposed to happen. Good job. I'm going to click that. Alrighty. If he wants to go backwards, he can totally go backwards. That's fine with me. But I don't think he wants to. Good job. So we were actually doing this earlier today and he did want to go back a few times and I just let him. Oh, here we go. He's going to do it. So usually he only gets to like the ramp and then he's happy to stand there. And I just wait. There's no pressure on the rope. If he wants to go all the way back, he can. Yeah, well, you're sideways again, buddy. Good boy. Yes. Yes. Don't go sideways. Good boy. So he's figuring out how to back off safely. He's like, okay, I feel unsafe here. How do I get off here safely? And that's a super important step because if your horse feels trapped and they feel like they can't get off, then that's going to make them even more anxious and stressed. Good boy. So he's going back and forth. I don't care. He can do whatever he wants. Good job. Because this is his time to get used to the float, to get used to the way that it moves, to get used to the sounds that it makes. So the fact that he keeps looking out there is telling me that he is feeling some level of stress, but I do believe it is within his capabilities. I believe it is within his thresholds because he's still taking food and he's still eager to keep trying. If your horse just starts shutting down and just constantly wants to just leave the float, then that's a good indication that your horse is over threshold, okay? Good boy. Good job. So I'm just letting him kind of process. Just taking our time. You can see that he's got a little bit of tenting above his eye. He's working through some anxiety. His halter looks spastic like that. Hang on, let me fix it. Okay, I think I've just done the strap a bit too loose, but that's all right. We'll fix it later. He wants to go back, he can go back. You just need to have a lot of patience. I recommend, I don't know, listening to a podcast or something, just something that's going to keep your mind occupied while he's working through what it is that he needs to work through. Good job. And guys, I'm not stopping him from leaving, so he keeps looking around. He's not allowed to turn around. I'm not going to let him turn around like that, but if he wants to back off, he can, and he knows that. So he's choosing not to. You know what? He's doing a really good job. I think he's really trying hard doing whatever it is that he's doing right now, like whatever he's processing. So I'm just going to give him a random freebie. Good boy. It was a tiny step, but it was a step, so I'm going to click that because I can tell that he needs a little bit more support, okay? Like the hay net is right there and he knows that there's lucerne in there that he could eat, but he does not feel like he can get that far at the moment, okay? So I'm going to encourage him by being like, that was awesome. Here's a click. Here's some food. Great effort. Just keep trying because I believe in you. Good job. That's all right. You can go backwards if you want. He wants to go backwards, that's totally fine. Just, no. You're gonna go up the side. Swing your hindquarters around. Good boy. Good boy. Back. Nope. Okay, good boy. Back. Back. Yeah, you're back. Back. Good job. Good boy. See how important the backing part is? Because he needs to trust that I will guide him the right way so he feels safe. All right, I'm gonna give him a break now. So once your horse has reached the hay net, you want to let them eat for a little while, let them relax, let them feel good in here, okay? And then you're going to want to ask them to back out, and then you're going to want to ask them to do things outside. So this is not a punishment. This is just two options, okay? So you don't want to be chasing your horse around, stressing them out outside the float. That's not the idea. That's not what we want to do. All we're going to do is do what we would probably be doing anyway, training wise, but we're just going to do it just outside the float. You know, do that for like a minute, 2 minutes, however long you want to do it. Don't do it for 15 minutes. That's just ridiculous. So just do it for like a few minutes. If your horse is looking really connected to you and they're looking nice and soft and relaxed, that's a good time to then ask them to come back in here, and then we're going to relax and eat the hay. Another really important thing is do not stop your horse from backing up, okay? Let them back up. This is a training session. This is not the real deal. Obviously, you don't want your horse to be backing up, trying to get out of the float every time you tie them up to float, but we're not at this stage yet. We're at the relaxing stage, which requires sometimes for your horse to decide when he needs time off the float and when he needs time to de-stress, okay? Because your horse knows the best of how he's feeling. We can only guess given the information that they give us, okay? So listen to your horse. They'll tell you what they need and let them have it, because this is their training session. During a training session, both you and your horse should feel good, okay? And if one of you guys is not feeling good, then stop, reevaluate, figure out how we can change things so that we both feel good, okay? So what you want at the end of this, you want like that really soft, squishy eye that they get when they're eating. That's your goal. At the moment, I'm pretty happy with that because there's not a lot of tenting above there. They're not super wide. He's blinking at a pretty normal frequency. Your horse is blinking really fast or like not blinking at all, then those are things that could indicate stress. He's seeking out food. He's eating. He's not stress eating, as in he's not like, oh my God, I need to eat this like all now because I'm stressing out and it's making me feel better. He does still want to turn around, but that could also just be him sussing things out. The way, good boy. Is that he wants to go backwards? Yeah, you can go back. Good boy. It's a bit bigger. A little bit worried there, but then he kind of just decides that actually everything's pretty fine. Everything's pretty fine. He's running out of lucid, so I'm going to ask him to go back now before he starts thinking that he wants to get off, because he kind of like, you right, buddy? Oh yeah, he's thinking about getting those two back feet up on, which would be awesome. But the hay net isn't really far enough back that he really needs to. So once we progress to another stage, he's going to be able to go back. Hey, baby. He's like, what you doing with that camera in my face, woman? All right, I'm going to ask him to go back now. Alrighty, guys. That is more or less the way that I train horses to load on the float. So a few things to remember before we go is work within your horse's threshold. Remember that this is a training session. You don't have to get your horse on a float. There is no pressure there for you or them. Just go slow, go at their pace, and just be consistent with it, and you'll be really surprised at how quickly this will work. If you found this video helpful, please like this video because it really helps the algorithm. I've just started on YouTube, so it really just helps the algorithm push the videos out. And feel free to leave a comment, even if it's just a love heart, or if you've got any questions or any topics that you want me to cover, or if you want me to go into more depth about things that I've talked about today in this video. And don't forget to subscribe with this little bell if you like my content and you want to see more videos. Alrighty, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.